The message arrived on a Tuesday. It came not through radio signals or digital transmissions, but materialized in the form of a small crystalline cube that appeared simultaneously in the offices of every world leader. For 3 days, scientists tried to understand what it was. On the 4th day, the cube activated itself. A hologram of a being with 6 limbs and skin that looked like polished metal stood before the stunned researchers. It spoke perfect English, and as they would later learn, it spoke in perfect versions of all Earth languages at once, depending on who was listening. "We are the Galactic Council. We have observed your species for some time. We invite representatives of Earth to meet with us. Instructions follow." The news spread across the globe in hours. Humanity was not alone, and they had been invited to join something greater than themselves. Olivia Green had been a diplomat for 20 years, handling some of the most delicate negotiations between hostile nations. Yet nothing prepared her for being selected as Earth's primary ambassador to an alien civilization. Admiral John Martinez, with his calm demeanor and strategic mind, was chosen to lead the military contingent. "I'm not sure if I should pack a formal dress or a spacesuit," Olivia joked to John as they prepared to board the newly christened Starship Endeavour, Earth's first faster-than-light vessel built using schematics provided by the Council. John smiled slightly. "Bring both. And maybe a good book. It's a long journey." The Endeavour took 3 weeks to reach the coordinates provided by the Council. When they arrived, the Earth delegation stared in awe at what awaited them. A massive ring, structure, easily the size of Earth's moon, rotated slowly against the backdrop of an unfamiliar star. Ships of various designs moved around it like fish in a coral reef. "Welcome to Harmony Station, seat of the Galactic Council," came a voice over their communication system. "You will be guided to Docking Bay 12. Prepare for customs inspection." Olivia felt her heart race as the airlock opened. Standing before them were 3 different alien species. The metallic being from the hologram, a tall creature covered in what looked like blue feathers, and a short, stocky being with rough bark-like skin. "I am Counselor Vexnar of the Zelvan Confederation," the metallic being said. "This is First Speaker Krill of the Avori Cluster and Trade Minister Duntak of the Berillian Worlds. We welcome Earth's representatives." The next few days were a whirlwind of introductions. The Council, they learned, consisted of 27 different species from across the Milky Way. Some had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They governed through consensus, sharing technology and resolving disputes peacefully. But by the 3rd day, Olivia noticed something concerning. The various Council members seemed to be watching the humans with unusual intensity. Small comments were made about humanity's rapid development and aggressive tendencies. "They're evaluating us," she whispered to John during a reception, "and I don't think we're scoring well." John nodded slightly. "I've counted 14 different security scans since we arrived. They're afraid of us." The formal hearing came a week later. The Earth delegation stood before the full Council in a vast chamber with seats arranged in a perfect circle. Counselor Vexnar addressed them. "We have reviewed Earth's history and biological profile with great care. We have observed your rapid technological advancement, your wars, your resilience, and your unpredictability." Olivia stepped forward. "Humanity has made mistakes, certainly, but we have grown. In the last century alone, we have reduced global conflicts, begun addressing climate challenges, and united more than ever before. We are ready to join a galactic community." A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through some of the Council members. The feathered Avori spoke next. "You misunderstand, Ambassador Green. This was not an invitation to join the Council. This was an assessment to determine what to do about your species." "What to do about us?" John asked, his voice carefully controlled. Vexnar's metallic face showed no emotion. "Humans evolve too quickly. You adapt to challenges at rates unseen in stable species. Your thought patterns are unpredictable. Your biology still carries the marks of a predator species. And that's bad?" Olivia asked. "It is dangerous," replied Duntak, the bark-skinned minister. The last species with your characteristics caused the extinction of 3 civilizations before they were contained. The chamber grew quiet as a new figure entered, taller than any of the others, with skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. I am High Counselor Xerath. I speak the final judgment of the Council, the being said. Earth and all human settlements are hereby placed under quarantine. You may develop within your solar system but are forbidden from expanding beyond it. Monitoring stations will be placed at the edge of your system. Any attempt to venture past the orbit of Neptune will be considered an act of aggression and will be met with immediate defensive measures. You can't just imprison an entire species in their own solar system, Olivia protested. We can and we have 17 times before, Xerath replied. Those who complied eventually developed into stable civilizations that were later admitted to the Council. Those who did not comply no longer exist. This is your only warning, Vexnar added. Return to Earth. Share our decision. Accept it. The journey back to Earth was silent and heavy with dread. How could they tell humanity that the stars had been closed to them? President William Russell received the news in the Oval Office, surrounded by his advisors. After a long silence, he asked, "What was their primary concern? That we're too aggressive?" "No, sir," Olivia replied. "That we're too adaptable, too unpredictable. We evolved too quickly in response to challenges." The president stood and walked to the window looking up at the night sky. "So the very things that have helped us survive on Earth are what they fear." "Yes, Mr. President," John said. "They expect predictable, stable species that change slowly and follow established patterns." President Russell turned around, a strange smile on his face. "Then they made a crucial mistake." "Sir?" Olivia asked. "They told us exactly why they fear us, and then they gave us the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced." He looked at each person in the room. They should have either destroyed us or embraced us. Instead, they challenged us. And if there's one thing humans do well, it's responding to challenges. The next morning, the president addressed the world. He told them of the Council's decision and the quarantine. But instead of counseling acceptance, his words sparked determination. "They have banned us from the stars because they fear what we might become," he said. "They have given us boundaries and expect us to stay within them. Throughout our history, humanity has faced those who would limit us, contain us, tell us what we cannot do or become. And throughout our history, we have proven them wrong." As his speech echoed across the planet, scientists were already gathering, military leaders were making plans, and industrialists were calculating what it would take to transform the solar system into humanity's stepping stone. The quarantine was meant to contain humanity. Instead, it became the spark that would eventually light the galaxy on fire. 20 years passed since the Galactic Council banned humanity from traveling beyond Neptune. 20 years of silent work, fierce determination, and stunning progress. The once empty spaces of the solar system now buzzed with human activity. Samantha. Harris stood at the viewing deck of Ceres Station, watching robots assemble another mining platform. As director of the Solar Alliance, the unified government that emerged 5 years after the ban, she carried the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. "Director Harris, Dr. Peterson has arrived," her assistant said through the comm system. "Send him in," Samantha replied, not taking her eyes off the construction outside. Alan Peterson was not what most people expected of a genius physicist. With EI, his messy brown hair and coffee-stained shirt, he looked more like an overworked college student than the man who might give humanity the stars. "You said it was urgent," Samantha said, turning to face him. Alan grinned, the kind of smile that made people nervous because it usually meant he had done something either brilliant or dangerous, often both. "We did it," he said simply. "The drive works." Samantha felt her heart skip. "You're certain? No quantum signatures that the Council can detect?" "Positive. We tested it yesterday on the dark side of Jupiter. The Council monitoring station showed no reaction. We moved a ship 15,000 kilometers in less than a second and they didn't even blink." For the first time in years, Samantha allowed herself to feel real hope. The Council's technology could detect the specific quantum disturbances created by conventional faster-than-light travel. It was how they enforced the quarantine. But if Alan's team had truly developed a method that didn't create those signatures— "How soon can we scale it up?" she asked. 6 months for a ship the size of the Pathfinder. Maybe a year for something big enough to carry colonists. Samantha nodded. "Keep this quiet. Only Level 1 clearance personnel can know." She turned back to the window. "And Alan, good work." Across the solar system, other preparations continued. On Mars, Colonel Kate Duncan watched her troops train in the low-gravity combat dome. Unlike Earth's traditional militaries, the Solar Defense Force was built on entirely new principles. "Again," Kate shouted as her soldiers reset their positions. "The Zelvan rely on predictable attack patterns. They expect the same from us. That's why we train to be unpredictable." Her second-in-command, Major Ben Howard, approached with a data pad. "The new combat suits passed all tests. Stealth capabilities exceed expectations." Kate nodded approvingly. "And the weapons?" "The particle disruptors work exactly as designed. They target the specific alloys used in Council ship hulls. 20 years of studying the single Zelvan scout ship they had captured gave humanity insights into Council technology that would have taken centuries to develop otherwise. The ship had been found monitoring Earth 5 years after the ban, its crew completely unaware that humans had developed technology that could detect their supposedly perfect cloaking system. In the secured labs of Europa's underwater research facility, Dr. Lisa Yang and her team worked on understanding the captured aliens' biology. The 3 Zelvan crew members had died during the capture, but their bodies provided valuable information. "Their neural pathways are fascinating," Lisa explained to her colleague. "They process information linearly with very little capacity for creative leaps. It explains a lot about why they fear us." "What do you mean?" asked her research partner. "They can't handle multiple possibilities simultaneously the way human brains can. They see our ability to make intuitive leaps as dangerous, unpredictable. It probably terrifies them." On Earth, now the administrative center of the Solar Alliance, President Carlos Mendez prepared for a system-wide address. The 20th anniversary of the ban was approaching, and people needed reassurance that progress was being made. "How much can I tell them?" Carlos asked Olivia Green, now his chief advisor on council affairs. Olivia had aged well, her once dark hair now streaked with gray, but her eyes still sharp with intelligence. "Nothing about Peterson's drive or Duncan's weapons, but you can mention the colony numbers. Give them hope." Carlos nodded. The following day, his image was broadcast to every human settlement from Mercury to Titan. 20 years ago, we were told to accept boundaries," he began. "Today I can report that we have established 17 permanent colonies across our solar system. Our population off Earth now exceeds 5 million souls. Our industrial capacity has increased tenfold. We have not accepted boundaries. We have pushed against them and prepared ourselves for what lies beyond." What Carlos didn't mention was the real purpose behind this rapid expansion. Every colony, every mining operation, every new ship built was part of an elaborate plan. A plan to break free of the Council's quarantine without triggering immediate retaliation. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. In a small research station orbiting Saturn, communications specialist Paul Rodriguez detected unusual patterns in the quantum signals used by the Council monitoring stations. "They're not continuous," he explained to his supervisor. "They have gaps, millisecond intervals where they're blind while the system resets." This discovery reached Samantha Harris within hours. "Can we exploit these gaps?" she asked during an emergency meeting of the Alliance leadership. Alan Peterson nodded enthusiastically. "Combined with our new drive, absolutely. We can slip ships past their monitoring network during those blind microseconds." "And they'd never know we've gone beyond Neptune?" Admiral Martinez asked. Though retired from active service, the now white-haired John Martinez remained a key strategic advisor. "Not if we're careful," Alan confirmed. 3 months later, the moment of truth arrived. A small unmarked ship called the Pioneer hovered just inside Neptune's orbit. Inside, Captain Grace Willis and her crew of 5 prepared to make history. "All systems nominal," her pilot reported. "Drive is charged and ready." Grace took a deep breath. If they were detected, the Council would likely destroy them instantly. If they succeeded, humanity would take its first step beyond the bars of its cosmic prison. Counting down to gap synchronization, the navigation officer said. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, jump. There was a brief sensation like falling, and then stillness. On the view screen, Neptune was suddenly distant, a small blue dot. Position confirmed, the navigator reported, voice trembling with excitement. We're 2 light hours beyond Neptune's orbit. No signs of detection from Council monitoring stations. Grace allowed herself a small smile. Send the encoded transmission to Director Harris. 1 word only. Back on Ceres station, Samantha received the message personally. A single word appeared on her secure terminal. Freedom. She closed her eyes briefly, savoring the moment. Then she reached for her comm unit. Get me Dr. Peterson and Colonel Duncan, and inform the President. Phase 2 begins now. Humanity had just taken its first step toward the stars, and the Galactic Council had no idea that their prison walls had just been breached. 50 years had passed since the Council's ban, 30 years since the first secret jump beyond Neptune. The Solar Alliance had grown into something much more than its name suggested, though only a few hundred people knew the full truth. Commander Frank Collins stood on the bridge of the Explorer, the largest ship ever built in secret by humanity. Hidden in the shadows of a rogue planet far from any star, he watched as his crew prepared for their most ambitious mission yet. Status report, Frank said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Laura White. All systems ready, sir. The jump drive is fully charged. Supply check complete. The diplomatic team is prepped. Frank nodded. Unlike the early test ships, the Explorer was designed for extended missions. Its crew of 50 included scientists, diplomats, and security personnel. Their destination was a star system over 30 light-years from Earth, well beyond the Council's regular patrol routes. Very well. Begin jump sequence. The strange non-sensation of the jump wash over them. One moment they were in darkness, the next they hung in space near a blue-white star with 7 planets. Intelligence gathered from decoded Council communications suggested the 4th planet was home to the Nuvari, a species that had been rejected by the Council centuries ago. We're being scanned, reported the sensor officer. Something just launched, from the 4th planet. Frank remained calm. Hold position. Open all communication channels. Remember our first contact protocols. 20 minutes later, they faced their first non-Council aliens. The Nuvari ship was elegant, with curved lines that resembled Earth's ancient sailing vessels. When their image appeared on the communication screen, Frank had to control his surprise. The Nuvari looked almost human, except for their silvery skin and large, completely black eyes. They had evolved on a world with a dim red sun, and their appearance was a case of convergent evolution, similar environments producing similar results. I am Vela, first speaker of the Nuvari Collective, said the alien in perfect English. You are not of the Council, yet you possess jump technology. Explain yourselves, Frank stepped forward. I am Commander Frank Collins of the Earth vessel Explorer. We represent the Solar Alliance of Humanity. Like you, we were judged and rejected by the Galactic Council. Vela's expression shifted subtly. The Council fears what it cannot control. When did they reject your kind? 50 years ago. The Nuvari delegation exchanged glances. 50 years? And you already have independent jump technology? We do, Frank confirmed. And we seek allies who understand what it means to live under the Council's shadow. 2 days later, Frank stood in a vast underground chamber on the Nuvari homeworld. Around him, the alien civilization had built an enormous city beneath the surface of their planet, hidden from Council observation satellites. We were banned 500 years ago, Vela explained as they walked. The Council claimed we were culturally incompatible with their values because we refused to accept their caste-based social structure. Frank nodded. From what they had learned, the Council prized stability above all else. Species that embraced change, valued individual freedom, or questioned authority, were seen as threats to their carefully ordered galaxy. "We have survived by staying hidden," continued Vela. "We developed technology that masks our energy signatures. We built our cities underground, but we never found a way to challenge the Council directly." "Perhaps together we can," Frank suggested. Back on Earth, another challenge was brewing. Governor Eric Turner of the Mars colony stood before his private council, his face grim. "The Solar Alliance is leading us to disaster," he said to the 12 men and women gathered in his secure conference room. "Provoking the Council will only lead to our extinction." Susan Clark, his chief advisor, nodded in agreement. "The latest intelligence suggests the Council has weapons that could sterilize our entire solar system. If they discover our ships have broken the quarantine..." Eric paced the room. "We need to contact them. Tell them that not all humans support this reckless expansion. Maybe we can negotiate better terms." "That would be treason," said one council member. "It would be survival," Eric countered. "I've made my decision. Prepare a communication drone. We'll launch it from Deimos Station, where Alliance monitoring is weakest." Unknown to Eric, Alliance Intelligence Officer Maria Bell had infiltrated his inner circle months ago. Within hours of the meeting, she transmitted an encrypted message to Earth. Director Samantha Harris, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, received the warning while meeting with the new Alliance President Daniel Wright. "Turner is going to betray us to the Council," she told him bluntly. "We need to act quickly." President Wright frowned. "We can't just arrest the governor of Mars. We need evidence. By the time we have evidence, it could be too late. The Council could already be preparing to sterilize our system." The president stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rebuilt skyline of New Washington. After the Great Quake 10 years earlier, much of the old city had been destroyed. The new one symbolized humanity's resilience. "What do you suggest?" he asked finally. "Operation Shadow Step. We accelerate our timeline. We've been establishing hidden colonies and outposts for years. It's time we prepare for the possibility that we might lose the solar system." 3 days later, as Maria Bell monitored communications from her hidden post on Mars, she intercepted the transmission being prepared by Governor Turner's team. It was worse than they had feared. Not only was he planning to inform the Council of humanity's expansion, but he had detailed information about jump drive technology, weapons development, and even the location of their meeting with the Nuvari. Maria's hand trembled as she composed her emergency message to Earth. There was no time for encryption, no time for subtlety. "Turner knows everything. Transmission to Council imminent. Must he act now?" Across the solar system, Operation Shadow Step launched 12 hours ahead of schedule. Hidden ships loaded with colonists, scientists, and essential personnel jumped beyond Neptune. Emergency data transfers sent humanity's accumulated knowledge to secure servers outside the solar system. On Mars, a special operations team led by Colonel Kate Duncan's protege, Major Ryan Phillips, moved to intercept Governor Turner, but they were too late. The communication drone launched, broadcasting directly on Council frequencies. "This is Governor Eric Turner of Mars. I must warn the Galactic Council that humanity has violated the terms of our quarantine. We have developed technology to evade your detection and have established contact with the Nuvari." Throughout Council space, monitoring stations picked up the transmission. On distant Harmony Station, Councillor Vexnar, older but still the main voice on human affairs, called an emergency session. "The humans have broken quarantine," the metallic being announced. "They must be dealt with immediately." But as the Council prepared their response, they noticed something strange happening at the edges of their territory. Unexplained gravitational anomalies, communication systems failing, navigation beacons giving incorrect readings. The silent rebellion had begun, and humanity was no longer merely escaping their prison. They were changing the rules of the game entirely. 100 years after the ban, humanity had spread further than anyone could have imagined. Proxima Haven, orbiting Earth's nearest stellar neighbor, had grown from a small research outpost to a thriving colony of over 1 million people. Hidden from Council detection by advanced cloaking technology derived from Nuvari science, It represented humanity's greatest achievement beyond the solar system. Admiral Heather Morris stood on the observation deck of the defense station orbiting Proxima, Haven. At 52, she had spent her entire career preparing for the day when the Council would discover them. Now that day had finally arrived. "Report," she said to the young officer beside her. "Long-range sensors detect a Council fleet," Lieutenant Doug Parker replied. 17 vessels. They appear to be on standard patrol, but their course will bring them within detection range of the colony in approximately 6 hours. Heather nodded calmly, though her mind raced through possibilities. The colony's cloaking technology was good, but not perfect. A thorough scan would reveal its presence. "Alert status orange," she ordered. "Begin evacuation protocol for non-essential personnel. Move the civilian ships to the dark side of the 5th planet." As her orders were relayed, Heather opened a secure channel to Earth. Despite being over 4 light-years away, the quantum entanglement communicators developed by Dr. Peterson's team decades earlier allowed instant communication. "Proxima Haven to Earth Command. Council fleet approaching. Request instructions." The response came minutes later from Fleet Admiral Vincent Chen, the highest military authority in the Solar Alliance. "Earth Command to Proxima Haven. Shadow Protocol. Authorized. Engage only if discovered. Priority is colony protection." Heather acknowledged the order but felt uneasy. Shadow Protocol meant they should try to remain hidden, using their advanced stealth technology to avoid detection. But if they were discovered, they were authorized to reveal their military capabilities. Capabilities the Council had no knowledge of. 4 hours later, the situation changed dramatically. The Council fleet altered course, heading directly toward Proxima Haven. "They've detected something," Lieutenant Parker said, his voice tense. "They're scanning actively now." Heather made her decision. Alert status red. Recall all fighters. Power up defensive systems but maintain stealth mode. She turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to the colony, all civilians to shelter immediately." On the main view screen they watched as the Council fleet approached. The ships were massive, dwarfing even the largest human vessels. Their design hadn't changed in the century since humanity's first contact. The Council valued stability and tradition over innovation. "They've launched probes," reported the sensor officer. "Detection imminent." Heather stood straight. Her decision made. "Drop the cloak. Power up all weapon systems. Launch defensive fighters." The order shocked her bridge crew, but they obeyed instantly. Around the station, hidden weapon ports opened. Squadrons of fighters, smaller and more agile than anything the Council used, launched from concealed hangars. On the command ship of the Council fleet, High Commander Zexnar of the Zelvan military stared in disbelief as a fully defended human colony suddenly appeared on his sensors. "Impossible," he muttered. "They were quarantined. Their system is monitored." His second-in-command looked equally shocked. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures. Their technology is not Council standard." Zexnar recovered quickly. "Broadcast on all frequencies. They have violated Council law. They will surrender or be destroyed." The message reached Proxima Haven moments later. Heather listened to the ultimatum with a grim expression. "Send our response," she ordered. "Tell them that we claim this system, under the sovereign right of the Solar Alliance of Humanity. We have violated no law that we recognize as legitimate. We will defend our colony." What followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Battle of Proxima. The Council fleet, confident in their superior numbers and technology, attacked with standard formation tactics that had served them for thousands of years. They were completely unprepared for what happened next. The human fighters moved in patterns that made no sense to Council tactical computers. They changed direction seemingly at random, attacked from impossible angles, and used weapons that bypassed standard Council shields. The larger human vessels revealed a weapon system based on principles the Council had never explored. Gravitational distortion that could tear a ship apart from the inside. In under 40 minutes, 12 of the 17 Council vessels were disabled or destroyed. The remaining 5 retreated, jumping out of the system to report what they had found. "Admiral, Heather Morris watched them go with mixed feelings. They had won a significant victory, but the war had just begun. "Send word to all human settlements," she ordered. "The Council knows we're here now. There's no more hiding." News of the battle spread across known space faster than anyone expected. The Council had suffered few military defeats in its long history, and never at the hands of a species they had quarantined. On distant worlds, species that had chafed under Council rule for centuries took note. On planets where Council decisions had caused hardship, people whispered about the humans who had defied the galaxy's oldest power. In the grand meeting chamber on Harmony Station, the highest levels of the Council gathered for an emergency session. The aging Archdelegate Zornthal, who had ruled the Council for 3 centuries, addressed the assembly. "The human infestation has spread beyond their system," the ancient being stated. "They have attacked and destroyed Council vessels. They have made contact with the Nuvari and possibly other rejected species. This cannot be tolerated." A younger Council member, Trelvin of the Solari, spoke up. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach. If humans have developed this level of technology in a mere century, that is precisely why they must be destroyed," Zornthal interrupted. "Any species that advances so rapidly, that changes so quickly, threatens the stability of our entire civilization. The galaxy must remain ordered, predictable." The vote was nearly unanimous. The full might of the Council's military would be mobilized to eliminate the human threat once and for all. But even as the Council made its plans, its carefully maintained order began to crumble from within. Member species that had trade relationships with humans quietly withdrew their military support. Others, seeing an opportunity to improve their own position, began secret negotiations with human representatives. On a hidden base at the edge of Council space, representatives from 7 different species met with Solar Alliance diplomats. Among them was Vela of the Nuvari, now the High Speaker of her people. "The Council has ruled through fear for too long," she told the gathered delegates. "They have suppressed innovation, restricted expansion, and punished independent thought. The humans have shown us that there is another way." By the time the Council fleet reached Proxima Haven 3 months later, they found not just a human colony, but a heavily fortified position supported by ships from 5 different species, all former Council members who had broken away to join what was now being called the Terran Confederation. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, and the Council's age of unquestioned authority was coming to an end. As both sides prepared for a conflict that would reshape the stars, humanity stood at the center of a revolution they had never intended to start. 200 years had passed since humanity was banned from the stars. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The once mighty Galactic Council, which had ruled for 50,000 years, now controlled less than a third of its former territory. In its place stood the Terran Confederation, an alliance of species united not by fear or tradition, but by shared values of freedom, innovation, and mutual respect. Admiral George Patterson stood on the observation deck of the massive diplomatic vessel Reconciliation as it approached Axillaris, the ancient capital world of the Council. At 45, George was relatively young for his position, but he carried the legacy of generations who had fought to bring humanity to this moment. His grandparents had been among the first colonists to settle beyond the solar system. His parents had fought in the Council Wars. Now he had the honor of representing humanity in what might be the final chapter of a 2-century struggle. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. George turned to see President Ellen Rivera, joining him at the viewport. Ellen, the 7th president of the Confederation, had won widespread support for her diplomatic approach to ending the conflict. After decades of war, both sides were exhausted. The Council had lost too many member species and too much territory to continue fighting effectively. "I never thought I'd see it up close," George admitted, looking at the jewel-like planet growing larger in the viewport. "My father told me stories about this place." Ellen nodded. "The birthplace of galactic civilization," they called it. "The place where humanity was judged and found wanting." She smiled slightly. "Now we return, not as supplicants but as equals." The reconciliation was escorted by ships from 7 different species as it entered orbit around Axelaris. The Council had insisted on strict protocols for this historic meeting, but there was no hiding the fact that the balance of power had shifted dramatically. "They're signaling readiness for our delegation," reported the communications officer. President Rivera straightened her formal jacket. "Admiral, shall we make history?" The Grand Council chamber looked much as it had when humans first stood there 2 centuries earlier. The circular arrangement of seats, the soaring ceiling that displayed a real-time map of the galaxy, the ancient symbols of authority carved into the walls, all remained unchanged. But the chamber was now only half filled. Many seats stood empty, their former occupants having joined the Confederation. Arch-Counselor Tervosh of the Zelvan, descendant of Vexnar who had delivered humanity's ban long ago, stood to greet the human delegation. "President Rivera of the Terran Confederation, we welcome you to Axelaris," the metallic being said formally. The voice carried the same tones as his ancestor, but there was something different in it. Hesitation, perhaps. Maybe even humility. Ellen stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity and all members of the Confederation, I thank you for this opportunity to forge a lasting peace." The discussions lasted 3 days. Technical teams from both sides worked out details of borders, trade agreements, and security protocols. Cultural exchanges were proposed. Scientific cooperation was cautiously established. On the final day, Ellen presented the Confederation Charter to the assembled Council representatives. Unlike the rigid hierarchy of the Council system, the Charter established principles of self-determination, technological sharing, and collaborative defense. "We do not ask you to abandon your beliefs or traditions," Ellen explained. "We ask only that you recognize the right of all intelligent species to determine their own path among the stars. The age of quarantine and suppression is over." Tervosh and the remaining Council members conferred privately for hours. When they returned, the ancient Zelvan spoke with what seemed like genuine wonder. "In 50,000 years of Council history, we have never faced a challenge like humanity. We quarantined you because we feared your unpredictability, your rapid evolution, your refusal to accept limitations." Tervosh paused. "We did not understand that these very qualities would transform the galaxy." The treaty was signed that day. While not every Council species joined the Confederation immediately, most recognized that the old order had passed. Some of the eldest and most conservative species, including a faction of the Zelvan, retreated to their homeworlds, refusing to accept the new reality. A few began preparing for another war, though most knew it would be futile. As the human delegation prepared to leave Axelaris, Admiral Patterson found himself approached by an elderly Avery, one of the blue-feathered beings that had been present when humanity was first judged. "I was there, you know," the ancient alien said softly, "when your kind was banned. I voted in favor of the quarantine." George wasn't sure how to respond. "And now?" The Avori made a gesture that might have been a smile. "Now I understand what we truly feared. Not your violence or your technology. We feared your hope, your endless belief that things could be better. It threatened our comfortable stability." On the return journey to Earth, Ellen and George stood again at the viewport, watching the stars streak by as the reconciliation traveled through space. "What do you think happens next?" George asked. Ellen considered the question carefully. For thousands of years, the galaxy was mapped, ordered, controlled. Species developed along predictable lines. Innovation was careful and slow. We've changed all that. She gestured to the stars. Out there, species are mixing, collaborating, creating things that never existed before. It's messy and unpredictable, and wonderful, George finished. 6 months later, a Confederation exploration vessel named Discovery prepared to make the first ever journey to the Andromeda Galaxy. Standing on its bridge was Noah Turner, great-grandson of the infamous governor, Eric Turner, who had tried to betray humanity to the Council a century earlier. The family had worked for generations to redeem their name, and now Noah would lead the first mission beyond the Milky Way. As the ship prepared for the unprecedented jump, Noah thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this point. Banned from the stars, they had refused to accept their prison. Facing extinction, they had found allies and built something greater than themselves. "All systems ready, Captain," his first officer reported. "Jump drive charged for intergalactic transit." Noah looked at the view screen, where Andromeda hung, like a distant spiral of light. No council ship had ever attempted such a journey. No council species had ever dared to dream so big. "Begin jump sequence," Noah ordered. "Let's see what's out there." As Discovery vanished in a flash of light, heading toward humanity's next great adventure, the words spoken by President William Russell 2 centuries earlier echoed across time. Throughout our history, humanity has faced those who would limit us, contain us, tell us what we cannot do or become. And throughout our history, we have proven them wrong. The Galactic Council had banned humanity from the stars. In response, humanity had forged their own empire, not one built on control and fear, but on freedom, adaptation, and endless possibility. An empire that now reached toward another galaxy, carrying the indomitable human spirit to new horizons beyond even the Council's imagination.